Hey guys, how's it going? Coming to you today down here at Prairie Camp. It's a place where we get a chance to just get away and listen to what God has for us today. And being down here surrounded by the woods and just having a time to get away makes me think about Lord of the Rings actually. Lord of the Rings was written by J.R.R. Tolkien, who's a Christian guy who wrote this story, and essentially at the core of this story there's a war brewing between two kingdoms. One is Mordor. It's a evil kingdom with basically a desire to wipe out mankind and elves and everything that's good. It's led by what's essentially a fallen angel named Sauron. On the other side is the human kingdom of Gondor. It's the only one that has the power left to withstand Mordor, to fight against Mordor. And as the characters work their way through the story, they go through many different kingdoms, and they kind of have to choose, all these kingdoms that they go through, kind of have to choose which of the great kingdoms, Mordor or Gondor, which side will I choose? Which side will I align with? Now remember, on Sunday we talked about faith. And we talked about faith is it's more than just beliefs or conviction. It's beliefs or conviction that lead us to act in such a way that doesn't always make sense unless God is involved in that. And so this could be as simple as saying, I'm not going to lie because that's an abomination for God, or as complicated as, I'm going to move to another state because I feel like God is calling me to go there. We talked about how James tells us that faith without works is dead, useless, and can't save us. And today, I wanted to briefly expound on that. Let me ask you, when Jesus started preaching, what was he saying? Do you remember? Way back at the beginning of his ministry, way back right after he spent 40 days in the desert fasting and being tempted, what was it that Jesus was preaching? Matthew records this for us in Matthew chapter 4, verse 17. He said, from that time, Jesus began to preach, saying, repent, for the kingdom of heaven is at hand. In fact, he wasn't the first person to preach that. John had already been preaching that message in preparation for Jesus. Now, the kingdom of heaven is not something that we preach about a lot in the United States. Not something that we talk about with the unsaved very often anymore. No, it seems like it's more often we like to talk about like getting saved and going to heaven. We'd like to talk about going to church and all of that. But that's not what Jesus was talking about here. So we're going to do a sermon series later on about the kingdom of heaven in the fall. So consider this just a little warm-up. The concept of the kingdom of heaven is much like what we see in the Lord of the Rings. There are two great kingdoms at battle, God's and Satan's. Now, we already know the outcome of that. We already know that God has already won. The decisive battle has been won already when Jesus died on the cross. Now, we represent all the little kingdoms, the elves of Lorien, the Rohirrim, the Horse Lords, and even Saruman. We must decide which side of the war we are going to join. Our kingdom represents everything that is within our power to control, from our thoughts and attitudes to our bank accounts. All of these things fall into our kingdom. Jesus calls for us to repent and enter the kingdom of heaven, into God's kingdom. It is very much real in the spiritual world. It's very much a real thing. It's not figurative. It's not something that's just a picture that Jesus is using. This is a very real kingdom, and that is why we have to have true faith, is to have works. If we're going to follow a real king, we will do what he says. God is the real king, and he has established Jesus as the Lord over everything. And so we are called to follow his commands. So the question then is this: what are you going to do with your kingdom? Have you aligned it with God? Because everyone not aligned with him will bow their knees to God in the end. And he has given us this time between his decisive victory and when he comes back in glory to bring our kingdom into his.